Captain Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched his crew work on the ancient wreckage. The massive alien ship had been buried in the asteroid for who knows how long. His team of human salvagers had found it 3 days ago, while mining for rare metals in the outer rim. Now they were cutting through layers of strange metal that seemed to change color in the light. "Jake, you need to see this," called Danny Brooks from inside the wreck. Danny was his best friend, and second in command. They had fought together in Earth's resource wars before joining the salvage business. "This ship is different from anything we've seen before." Jake climbed through the hole his team had cut in the hull. Inside, the ship was huge and filled with strange symbols on the walls. The symbols seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. It made his head hurt a little, but in a good way, like his brain was waking up from a long sleep. "Look at these control panels," Danny said, pointing to a wall covered in buttons and screens. "Lisa thinks there's some kind of training system." Dr. Lisa Carter was the smartest person Jake knew. She studied alien biology and had joined their crew 6 months ago. She was kneeling next to what looked like a chair with wires coming out of it. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "This isn't just any alien ship," Lisa said without looking up. "The neural interface patterns match something I've only seen in old Earth military files. These aliens fought like humans do when we're really desperate. Wild, unpredictable, always changing tactics." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The galaxy had been at peace for 30 years since humans joined the Galactic Confederation, but everyone knew it was a fake peace. The big alien empires treated humans like stupid animals, good only for dangerous jobs that might kill them. Earth's government played along because they had no choice. Human ships were weak and their weapons were old. "What kind of aliens were they?" Jake asked. Lisa stood up and brushed dust off her knees. "According to the computer files I can access, they called themselves something that translates to chaos. Makers. They disappeared about 5,000 years ago. No one knows why, but before they vanished, they fought wars that made entire star systems surrender without a battle." Danny laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Sounds like my kind of people. What happened to them?" "That's the mystery," Lisa said. "One day they were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The next day they were gone. No bodies, no destroyed worlds, nothing. Like they just decided to leave." Jake's communication device buzzed. A message from Commander Amy Torres on Earth. Amy was the human representative to the Galactic Confederation, which meant she spent most of her time getting yelled at by alien politicians who thought humans were dirt. "Jake, we have a problem." Amy's voice was tight with worry. "The Zephyrian Empire just made a demand. They want Earth to provide 10 million humans for forced labor in their mining colonies. They're calling it a contribution to galactic prosperity." The 3 humans in the alien ship looked at each other. The Zephyrians were the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They had ships that could destroy Earth's entire fleet without breaking a sweat. When they made demands, smaller species obeyed or got wiped out. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. 6 months to deliver the first 1,000,000 people. General Stone is stalling, but we all know this is just the beginning. Today it's workers. Tomorrow, it's soldiers. Next year it's complete slavery. Jake closed the communication and looked around the strange ship. The symbols on the walls seemed brighter now, almost like they were listening to the conversation. "Lisa, can you make this training system work?" She nodded slowly. "I think so. But Jake, we don't know what it will do to us. These neural interfaces could fry our brains or drive us crazy." "Crazier than letting the Zephyrians turn us into slaves?" Danny asked. "I say we try it." Jake made his decision. "Do it, but carefully. Test it on me first." For the next 2 hours, Lisa worked on the alien technology. Jake helped Danny catalog the weapons they found throughout the ship. They were strange weapons that seemed to change shape depending on how you held them. Some looked like guns, others like swords, but they all felt warm to the touch, like they were alive. "Ready?" Lisa called. "The system seems to be some kind of combat training program. It's designed to teach fighting techniques to people with neural patterns similar to the original users." Jake sat in the chair. Lisa attached the alien wires to his head. They felt cold against his skin, then warm. Then he couldn't feel them at all. The world disappeared. Jake found himself standing on a battlefield under an alien sky. Enemy soldiers surrounded him, but they moved in slow, predictable patterns. He could see what they were going to do before they did it. His body knew how to fight in ways he had never learned. He flowed like water between their attacks, striking when they least expected it, changing his tactics every few seconds so they couldn't adapt. But the strangest part was his mind. Usually in combat, Jake focused on one plan and stuck to it. Now his brain held 5 different battle plans at the same time, switching between them without warning. He confused himself, but somehow that confusion made him stronger. His enemies couldn't predict what he would do because he didn't know himself, until the moment he acted. The training lasted hours or maybe minutes. Time didn't work right in the simulation. When Jake opened his eyes back in the real world, he felt different. His muscles remembered moves he had never practiced. His mind felt sharper, more flexible, like a sword that had been sharpened on both edges. "How do you feel?" Lisa asked. Jake stood up and realized he was moving differently. More fluid, more aware of everything around him. "Like I just remembered something I never knew I had forgotten." Danny tried the system next, then Lisa. Each time the ancient technology taught them new ways to fight. Not just with weapons, but with their minds. How to think in chaos and make that chaos into a weapon. Over the next week, word spread quietly through the human colonies. Jake's crew wasn't the only one finding ancient battlefields. Across the Outer Rim, human salvagers were discovering the remains of Chaos Maker civilization, and every time they activated the old training systems, humans learned to fight in ways that made no sense to anyone else. On Earth, General Marcus Stone received reports of his people learning impossible combat techniques. He smiled for the first time in months. Maybe the Zephyrians had made a mistake. Maybe they had given humanity just enough time to remember what they used to be. In the depths of space, the ancient training systems continued to wake up, recognizing the neural patterns of their long-lost creators' children. The Chaos Makers were gone, but their legacy lived on in the chaotic, unpredictable minds of humanity. The galaxy was about to learn what controlled chaos could do in the hands of desperate people with nothing left to lose. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison's crew found the first Chaos Maker ship. Now hidden training camps dotted the asteroid fields of the Outer Rim. Thousands of humans were learning to fight in ways that hurt their brains to think about, but felt right in their bones. Lieutenant Pete Johnson pulled his fighter into a spin that should have torn his ship apart. Instead, he felt the chaos combat training take over his mind. His hands moved on the controls without his conscious thought, making his ship dance through space like it was alive. Behind him, 3 other human pilots followed his lead, their formation looking like random madness to anyone watching. "Red Squadron, this is insane," his wingman radioed. "I can't predict what you're going to do next." "That's the point," Pete replied, rolling his ship upside down for no tactical reason except that it felt right. "If we don't know what we're doing, how can the enemy?" They were practicing for real combat. The Zephyrian Empire had grown tired of waiting for Earth's response to their demands. Zephyrian ships had started raiding human colonies, taking people by force. The attacks were methodical and predictable, following standard military doctrine that had worked for 1,000 years. That was about to change. On the planet New Denver, Staff Sergeant Maria Gonzalez crouched behind a broken wall with her squad of 12 soldiers. Zephyrian troops were advancing toward their position in perfect formation, their blue armor gleaming in the alien sun. Maria's squad should have been dead already. The Zephyrians had better weapons, better armor, and 10 times as many soldiers. But Maria's mind was dancing with chaos patterns she had learned from the ancient training systems. She held 4 different battle plans in her head at the same time, ready to switch between them without warning. Her soldiers had trained the same way, learning to trust their instincts even when those instincts made no sense. "Squad, execute, pattern random," Maria whispered into her radio. Her soldiers moved like a pack of wild animals. 3 of them charged straight at the enemy while the rest scattered in different directions. The Zephyrians adjusted their formation to meet the charge, then got confused when 2 humans appeared behind them from impossible angles. While the aliens tried to reorganize, Maria's team hit them from the left, right, and above all at once. The battle lasted 8 minutes. When it was over, all 12 humans were alive. 47 Zephyrian soldiers were dead or unconscious. The survivors were babbling about humans who could teleport and read minds. Dr. Kevin Walsh studied the combat reports from a dozen different battles. As a military psychologist, he was trying to understand how the chaos training worked. What he found made him both excited and worried. The human brain is more flexible than we ever realized, he told Admiral Susan Clark during their weekly briefing. While other species think in straight lines, we can hold multiple contradictory thoughts without going crazy. It's like we're built for controlled chaos. Admiral Clark nodded as she reviewed the battle footage on her screen. Human forces were winning fights they should have lost, using tactics that made alien military computers crash from confusion. What about the psychological effects on our people? That's the interesting part, Dr. Walsh said. Instead of driving them insane, the chaos training seems to make them calmer, more confident, like they're finally using their brains the way they were meant to be used. On Earth, General Marcus Stone watched the same reports with growing satisfaction. The Zephyrians had expected easy victories against primitive humans. Instead, they were losing battles to enemies who seemed to break every rule of warfare. News of human successes was spreading through the galaxy, causing ripples of shock and fear, but Stone knew the real test was coming. The Zephyrians were sending a full battle fleet to crush the human rebellion before it could spread. 300 warships against Earth's pitiful defense force of 28 aging cruisers. It should have been a massacre. The battle happened in the space around Mars. Pete Johnson led the first wave of human fighters, their chaotic flight patterns confusing the Zephyrian targeting computers. The alien ships fired at where the humans should have been, not where they actually were. All fighters execute Madness Protocol, Pete ordered. The human ships stopped following any recognizable pattern. They attacked from random angles, retreated, when they should have pressed forward, and worked together without any apparent coordination. To the Zephyrians, it looked like the humans had lost their minds. Captain Bobby Martinez commanded one of Earth's cruisers during the battle. His ship was old and outgunned, but his crew had been trained in chaos tactics for 2 months. When 3 Zephyrian destroyers moved to surround him, Bobby did something that violated every rule of space combat. He ordered his ship to ram the middle destroyer while simultaneously broadcasting a surrender message and launching all his missiles at the other 2 ships. The Zephyrian captains froze for a crucial 3 seconds trying to process the contradictory signals. Those 3 seconds were enough for Bobby's missiles to cripple both destroyers, while his ship scraped past the third, its armor barely holding together. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Zephyrian fleet was in full retreat. They had lost over 100 ships to Earth's 28. The survivors sent panicked reports back to their empire about humans who fought like the legendary chaos makers of ancient stories. President Linda Gray received the victory report in her office. She had been preparing Earth's surrender when the battle began. Now she stared at casualty numbers that seemed impossible. Humanity had not just survived the Zephyrian attack, they had won decisively. "Ma'am," her aide said, "we're getting communication requests from dozens of alien species. Some want to surrender to us. Others want to form alliances, and a few are threatening to destroy Earth before we become too dangerous." Linda felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. Humanity had spent 30 years as the galaxy's janitors and miners. Now, in the space of a few months, they had become something the galaxy feared. Across human space, more ancient chaos maker sites were being discovered. The training systems were teaching combat techniques that seemed to warp reality itself. Humans were learning to fight not just with weapons, but with probability, confusion, and pure unpredictability. In the outer colonies, human resistance groups struck at Zephyrian outposts, using tactics so chaotic that the aliens stopped trying to predict human behavior and started fleeing at the first sign of human presence. Stories spread of humans who could make enemy weapons jam just by thinking about it, or who could walk through laser fire because they moved in patterns that confused targeting systems. The galaxy's elder races began checking their old archives, looking for references to the chaos makers. What they found made them afraid. The ancient records spoke of warriors who could turn order into chaos with a thought, who fought battles that made reality itself unstable. And now those warriors had returned, wearing human faces and carrying human hearts filled with the rage of the oppressed. The old galactic order was beginning to crack, and through those cracks chaos was starting to leak. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. Humans, the species everyone had ignored for 30 years, had destroyed a Zephyrian battle fleet. In the great libraries of ancient worlds, scholars pulled out old books that hadn't been opened for thousands of years. The words they found made their hands shake with fear. "The Chaos Makers have returned," whispered Elder Vorthak of the Crystalline Collective to his council. The old prophecies spoke of this day. Warriors who think with madness but fight with purpose. They said when the Chaos Makers came back, the galaxy would burn. Colonel Ryan Mitchell didn't care about prophecies. He cared about the Zephyrian supply depot he was about to attack with his Special Forces team. The depot was supposed to be impossible to assault. It sat in the middle of empty space, surrounded by defense platforms and patrol ships. Any normal attack would be detected hours before it arrived. But Ryan wasn't planning a normal attack. He was planning chaos. His 12 ships approached the depot from 6 different directions, at 6 different speeds, broadcasting 6 different fake distress signals. Half his team pretended to be merchants. The other half acted like refugees. When the Zephyrian defenders tried to figure out what was happening, their computers crashed from trying to process too many contradictory scenarios at once. By the time the Zephyrians realized they were under attack, Ryan's team was already inside their perimeter. The human soldiers moved through the depot like ghosts, appearing where they shouldn't be, attacking targets that made no strategic sense, then vanishing before the defenders could respond. "Target the food storage first," Ryan ordered. "Then hit the weapon racks, leave the command center for last." His lieutenant looked confused. "Sir, shouldn't we take out their communications first?" "That's what they expect," Ryan smiled. "Chaos means doing what doesn't make sense until it suddenly does." The attack lasted 23 minutes. The humans destroyed enough supplies to cripple Zephyrian operations in 3 star systems, then disappeared back into space before reinforcements arrived. The depot commander's report was so full of impossible events that his superiors thought he had lost his mind. Captain Samantha Parker read that report from her hiding place on the Zephyrian homeworld. She had been working undercover there for 2 months, gathering intelligence and spreading rumors designed to make the aliens paranoid. Her job was psychological warfare, and she was very good at it. "The humans can walk through walls," she whispered to a group of Zephyrian civilians in a crowded market. "My cousin saw it happen. They just stepped through solid metal like it was air." The civilians passed the story to their friends, who told their families, who spread it through their workplaces. Within a week, half the planet believed humans had magical powers. Zephyrian soldiers started shooting at shadows and jumping at loud noises. Samantha's favorite trick was leaving human artifacts in impossible places. A human coin inside a locked safe. A human photograph nailed to the inside of a sealed wall. A human uniform hanging in a closet that had been welded shut for years. She never explained how she did it, because fear of the unknown was stronger than fear of the understood. On Earth, Ambassador Helen Davis was building what she called the Chaos Coalition. Species from across the galaxy were sending secret messages, asking if they could join humanity's fight against the old galactic order. Most of them had been oppressed by the big empires for centuries. "The Zephyrians treat us like slaves," said Ambassador Quillix of the Tentacled Worlds. "The Crystalline Collective steals our resources. The old system only works for the powerful. We want chaos. We want change." Helen smiled as she reviewed the list of species willing to ally with humanity. They weren't all warriors. Some were merchants, others were scientists, and a few were refugees from destroyed worlds. But they all shared one thing. They were tired of being told their place in the galaxy by beings who thought they were better. "Chaos doesn't mean destruction," Helen explained to her new allies. "It means freedom to choose your own path instead of following someone else's plan." But not everyone wanted to join the coalition. The elder races, the ones who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, were meeting in secret to discuss the human problem. They remembered the old stories better than anyone, and those stories terrified them. Chief Engineer Tony Russo was working on humanity's newest weapons when the elder races made their decision. His laboratory was hidden inside an asteroid where he was building devices that shouldn't have been possible. Weapons that fired chaos instead of energy, ships that could exist in multiple places at the same time, armor that protected by being unpredictable. The quantum resonance field is stabilizing, Tony reported to his team. The chaos amplifiers are working better than we hoped. These weapons don't just fire at enemies, they make enemies confused about whether they've been shot or not. His assistant, a young engineer named Carol Webb, stared at the test results. Tony, this doesn't make sense. How can a weapon make someone forget they've been hit? Because the weapon attacks their certainty, not their body, Tony explained. Chaos warfare isn't about destroying the enemy. It's about making them doubt everything they think they know. The Elder Race's plan was simple and brutal. They would use an ancient weapon called the Reality Anchor to stabilize space-time around all human worlds. The weapon would make chaos impossible by forcing the universe to follow rigid, predictable laws. Any human who tried to use chaos tactics would find their minds burning out from the contradiction. President Linda Gray learned about the plan from Helen's intelligence network. The weapon was being prepared in the Galactic core, protected by the combined fleets of 6 elder races. If it activated, every human in the galaxy would either die or go insane within hours. How long do we have? Linda asked her advisors. 6 weeks, Helen replied. Maybe less. They're moving faster than expected because some of their own people are defecting to our side. Linda looked at the strategic display showing human territories scattered across the galaxy. Humanity had grown, strong, but they were still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The elder races had weapons that could crack planets and ships that could travel through time itself. But humans had something the elder races had forgotten about. They had the ability to embrace uncertainty, to find strength in confusion, to make chaos into a weapon that could reshape reality itself. Send word to all human commanders, Linda ordered. Operation Madness begins in 72 hours. We're going to attack the Galactic core with every ship we have. Her advisors looked shocked. Ma'am, that's suicide. The elder races will be expecting us. Linda smiled, and for a moment, she looked like every human who had ever faced impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. They'll be expecting a logical attack. They'll have plans for every reasonable strategy we might use, but we're not going to be reasonable. We're going to be chaos. Across human space, the call went out. Every ship, every soldier, every person, trained in the ancient ways of the Chaos Makers, began preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The old order was about to learn what happened when chaos met certainty in a fight to the death. The largest fleet in human history gathered at the edge of known space. 2,000 ships of every size and design hung in the darkness like angry stars. Admiral Chris Thompson stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final preparations for Operation Madness. In 6 hours, they would either save humanity or die trying. Admiral, the Chaos Coalition forces are reporting ready, his communications officer announced. We have ships from 47 different species. They're all asking the same question, though. What's the plan? Thompson smiled grimly. Tell them the plan is to have no plan. We're going to fly straight into the most heavily defended system in the galaxy and make it up as we go. At the Galactic core, the Reality Anchor weapon hung in space like a metal moon. It was surrounded by the greatest concentration of military power ever assembled. 6 elder races had brought their most powerful fleets, over 10,000 ships armed with weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The weapon itself pulsed with energy that made space-time rigid and predictable for 1 billion miles in every direction. General Patricia White led the ground assault teams aboard the transport ships. Her soldiers were the best chaos fighters humanity had trained, but even they looked nervous as they approached the impossible battle ahead. The Reality Anchor station was the size of a small planet, defended by millions of alien troops who had never lost a battle. Remember, Patricia told her commanders over the radio, chaos doesn't mean random. It means unpredictable, with purpose. We're not here to destroy everything. We're here to make them so confused they destroy themselves. Dr. Alan Foster worked frantically in the science ship's laboratory, making final adjustments to the quantum chaos amplifiers. His team had discovered something amazing in the past week. Human chaos abilities weren't just mental tricks. They actually changed the laws of physics in small areas around trained humans. The amplifiers could make those changes much bigger. If this works, Alan muttered to himself, we won't just be using chaos tactics. We'll be turning chaos into a weapon that rewrites reality itself. Captain Bobby Martinez commanded a squadron of the fastest human ships. His job was to get close to the reality anchor and plant Foster's amplifiers before the elder races could stop them. It was a suicide mission, but Bobby had volunteered anyway. He understood something the older officers didn't. The chaos training had changed them all, made them capable of things that should have been impossible. The battle began when Thompson's fleet dropped out of hyperspace, right in the middle of the elder race's formation. Instead of attacking from the outside like any sane commander would do, the humans appeared everywhere at once, their ships scattered randomly through the enemy fleet. All ships execute pattern insanity, Thompson ordered. The human fleet exploded into motion. Ships flew in directions that hurt to look at. Fighters attacked battleships while cruisers rammed space stations. Some ships broadcast surrender messages while firing all their weapons. Others flew backwards while shooting forward. The elder race's targeting computers couldn't handle the contradictory information and started shutting down. Bobby's squadron wove through the chaos, their ships dancing between laser beams and missile explosions. The reality anchor's defenses focused on the main battle, allowing Bobby to slip past the outer perimeter. But as they got closer to the weapon, reality itself started fighting them. I can't maintain course, his pilot reported. The space around the weapon won't let us fly chaotically. It's forcing us into predictable patterns. Bobby felt it too. The chaos training in his mind was being suppressed by the reality anchor's field. But he also felt something else. Anger. Pure human rage at being told how to think and fight. That anger gave him an idea. All ships, stop trying to be chaotic, he ordered. Instead, be angry. Be human. Fight like we're protecting our families. The squadron's ships suddenly flew with deadly purpose instead of random chaos. They weren't being unpredictable anymore, they were being furious. And fury, Bobby realized, was its own kind of chaos. The reality anchor couldn't suppress human emotion, only human tactics. Patricia's ground troops had landed on the weapons station using the oldest human trick in the book. They pretended to crash. Their transport ships smashed into the station's docking bays, looking like accidents caused by the space battle. The alien defenders rushed to capture the survivors only to find that the humans weren't hurt at all. They had used the crash as cover for a perfect infiltration. Teams Alpha through Delta caused noise and confusion in the main corridors. Patricia ordered. Teams Echo through Hotel, find the weapon control room. Everyone else make them think we're everywhere at once. Her soldiers scattered through the station like water finding cracks in stone. They appeared in vents, crawled through maintenance tunnels and walked through doors that should have been locked. The station's defenders tried to track them, but humans kept showing up in places that were supposed to be impossible to reach. In space, the battle was turning into something that broke the laws of physics. Foster's quantum amplifiers were working. Reality around the human ships was becoming flexible, allowing impossible maneuvers and weapons that fired pure confusion instead of energy. Elder race ships found their own weapons turning against them, their navigation system sending them in circles, their communications broadcasting random poetry instead of orders. Thompson watched as a human cruiser flew through a crystalline battleship without damaging either vessel, then turned around and did it again. Another human ship was firing missiles that turned into flowers before exploding into black holes. His own flagship's chaos field was so strong that enemy shots aimed at him were hitting targets on the other side of the battle. Admiral, his science officer reported, the reality anchor is losing power. Something is interfering with its quantum stabilizers. Patricia had found the weapons control room after leading her teams through a maintenance shaft that existed in 17 dimensions. At once, the alien technicians operating the reality anchor were the galaxy's best scientists, but they had never seen anything like human chaos warfare up close. "Surrender, and we won't hurt you," Patricia told them in their own language. The lead technician, a being made of living crystal, stared at her in horror. "You're impossible. Our sensors say you're not really here, but you're standing right in front of us." "That's the point," Patricia smiled. "Reality is what we make it." Foster's amplifiers, planted throughout the station by Bobby's teams, began working together. The reality anchors field, designed to make the universe follow rigid laws, started fighting against itself as chaos leaked into its core systems. The weapon that was supposed to destroy humanity's chaotic abilities instead became chaotic itself. The end came suddenly. The reality anchor, unable to handle the contradiction between order and chaos in its own circuits, simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving only empty space and very confused elder race fleets. Without the reality anchor to suppress them, human chaos abilities exploded across the battlefield. Ships began existing in multiple places at once. Weapons fired backwards through time. Some elder race vessels found themselves fighting their own past or future selves. The battle lasted 14 hours, or maybe 14 minutes, or possibly, it was still going on in a parallel dimension. When it ended, the old galactic order was finished. The elder race's fleets had either surrendered, fled, or become so confused they forgot what they were fighting about. President Gray received the victory report while standing in the ruins of the ancient Chaos Maker facility, where it all began. The galaxy would never be the same. The rigid laws that had kept some species in power and others in slavery were gone, replaced by beautiful, terrifying chaos. Humanity had won, not by becoming better soldiers, but by becoming themselves. The galaxy now belonged to anyone brave, enough to embrace uncertainty and make their own path among the stars.